Welcome to Contact Rural Connect's Transition to School for Budget-Based Funded Services. This is Module 2 of 5. These 5 modules are part of a learning program to best assist budget-based funded services to either A, link into a current or existing schools transition program, B, design a schools transition program, or C, identify how to create a school-ready child or to create a school ready for a child. These modules have been designed to create group discussion amongst educators in regards to a transition to school for preschool-aged children. You will find there will be a set of reflective questions as well as movies and resources to support individual learning. These modules are designed to be engaged in for 1 hour or dependent upon the learning styles of the educators. These can be run during staff meeting or professional staff days. The first reflective question in regards to Module 2 in regards to expectations of educators is this. As educators, what is your focus in preparing children for being school ready? As a group, think about what your focus is. Is it in regards to pen grip, recognising letters, recognising words, being responsible for their own possessions? Or is it more around the social and emotional well-being and development of the children in your care? You might wish to pause this presentation while educators have a reflective conversation about your focus. It might be handy to display some butcher's paper around the room or on desks to be able to write down those brainstormed answers. Having visuals that where educators have had their discussions can sometimes be a powerful reference point in future conversations. If you've paused this presentation, welcome back. The next question we'd like to consider is how do you know if children in your service are ready for school? What indicators do you recognise in children that alert you to the fact that they are ready for school? What might be some indicators that will alert you to the fact that a child may not be ready for school? You might wish to focus on one individual child who is preschool age. You might wish to focus on their current interests, needs, and their strengths. You might also identify any needs in that child and whether those needs that you're catering for may also prove to be a barrier once they start or begin school. As before, you may wish to pause this presentation while your group engages in a reflective conversation in regards to knowing if your children are ready to begin school and identifying specific children in your group and in different communities who are of preschool age and ready to transition into different types of schooling. In Module 1, you are asked to reflect on the styles of education that children would be entering into. For example, School of the Air, distance education, one-teacher schools, composite classes, boarding school, or other mainstream primary schools. As budget-based funded services in rural and remote areas, you are aware that children are transitioning into many different types of schools environments. We need to take these into consideration to ensure our children are ready. If you've paused this presentation, welcome back. The next thing we need to look at are your current documentation practices. This is really important. Not how you document, but what you actually document about the child. Contained within your documentation are key pieces of evidence which assist you in identifying whether a child is ready for school, their strengths, needs and interests, and the way that you can best support them to transition, as well as providing the school and families important information to best assist the child in their first year of school. Once again, you might wish to pause your presentation. I strongly encourage each educator to source the type of documentation that you maintain and keep at the service. Display those out on a table and have a strong discussion around what your documentation is telling you. What information is it providing to you? You may wish to focus on your preschool age children or even the children 1 year out from starting school. So for example, the preschool children who will be preschool next year, not necessarily this year. Welcome back. Now we've identified certain expectations, your knowledge of the child and your current documentation practices, we now need to focus on the transition to school statement that is provided to you through the Department of Education and Communities. Watch the following movie as this will give you further background into the school's transition statement.
Starting school is a major event in the life of children and their families, and it's made easier when information is shared between families, early childhood services and schools. This can help build strong relationships and ensure a smooth transition to school. A good transition means children start school ready to learn and schools are better prepared. The new transition to school statement will make the process even smoother. The statement offers, for the first time, a common format for early childhood educators and families to provide important information to schools about the children entering their kindergarten classes. Parents will have the opportunity to provide their perspective on their child's early learning and development, and children too will have the chance to give their own input. Early childhood educators will take the lead in completing the statement in cooperation with families.
The statement helps close the gap between primary school education and the early childhood education. I guess it's meaningful relationships, not just with the child, the family, but also that partnership with the school. So the child is walking into an environment that they are aware of and feel a sense of belonging to.
Use of the statement is entirely voluntary, but early childhood educators, teachers and families can all benefit by taking part.
It made me feel more confident with him going to school. He seemed ready, he knew what it was about, he'd met his teachers, they knew about him, and they were both, on day one, they were ready to go.
The statement will provide us really useful information for our classroom teachers. It'll give us information in social and emotional development, and it'll complement the best start that we do at the beginning of the year, so that we'll have a picture of the whole child and how we can have a positive start to their school career.
The statement includes a summary of the child's strengths, their interests and approaches to learning. With the family's permission, the completed statement will be forwarded to the child's intended school by their early childhood educator. If families prefer, they can choose to forward the statement on to the school themselves. For more information on the New South Wales Transition to School Statement, go to our website at dec.nsw.gov.au/transition to school.
So let's have a look at the transition to school statement. This is a voluntary process, and by no means do services have to engage or send through the school's transition statement to the primary school or other educational institutions that the child might be attending. However, when we look at the school's transition statement, it's an interesting perspective to adopt as the early childhood educator. So let's look at this section first. Some of the questions that are contain questions in regards to the child's independence and resilience, about how the child builds relationships not only with their peers but with other adults, and how the child self-regulates and manages their emotions. The focus is very apparently on the social and emotional domains of the child. Further questions include how the child is curious in regards to learning new things and the ability to persist at tasks. This is very much in regards to the learning disposition of children. Summarising the child's communication skills, taking into account their language and literacy, their overall strengths and their interests. Some services have worked with children for a long period of years and have good, strong knowledge of the child. We've seen how they've grown and developed some of these tasks and developed some of their language and literacy needs. Some children's language and literacy needs need to be further developed prior to them starting school. Does this happen with us in our services, or is this something that we refer to the schools and the families? They're good guiding questions for educators to engage in deep reflective questions in regards to whether the child is school ready, and providing information to schools also allows the school to be ready for the child that's about to begin their first year of school. Other questions like, what do the children like to do at your education and care service? What particular teaching strategies and environments encourage this particular child's learning? Have you got individual leisure educational plans or other supports in place to facilitate the learning of this child? And what other supports could potentially assist the child in a primary school context? In Modules 3, 4 and 5, we will discuss the differences between your early childhood setting as they're compared to a primary school setting, and specifically in the context of the budget-based funded services, specifically those in mobile children's services, creches, long day cares and preschools. Looking at the school's transition statement, there are some good questions for reflection for educators. This is why you're encouraged to look at your current documentation. Many of these questions directly reflect some of the key information and evidence you have been compiling about children over a number of years, period of months, weeks. This is all vital information to support the child in their next transition into primary school, to allow the school to know the child and therefore to be able to grow the child. If you require any further information or support, don't hesitate to contact us on Contact Inc. on 02 92 12 5588. Don't forget there are further modules to support you on your learning journey in regards to the school's transition program. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on Module 3.